Thank you again, gentlemen. And they say a Sandik has special skula to give brachas, so my brachas to you should only have nachas and simcha, health, and lots of shtagi. So we're on Daf Lamed Zayin, and we're up to the Mishnah. And the whole issue in the Mishnah is what's called misukenes. A misukenes is an animal that exhibits a certain behavior pattern that indicates that it's about to die. And if you shech that animal, you don't know whether it died like a second before the shechita or maybe after the shechita. If it died before the shechita, then obviously it's an avela. So the Mishnah says hashochet es hamisukenes, and we'll see later on, more of the details about how we know that it's a misukenes. But we have to now convince ourselves with all certainty that the animal did not die before shechita. So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, ad shetefarches biyad uberegel. Once the animal reaches the state of misukenes, then we have to go very far to be absolutely sure that it didn't die before the shechita. How far do we have to go? We have to see that it shakes a foreleg and a hind leg. So one leg in the forward and one leg in the back. However, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Daya im zinka. It's enough if the animal spouts blood from the shechita, because apparently if it died, then you wouldn't see that profound impact of shechita when the animal sort of huffs and puffs and then sends out a stream of blood. And that spouting of blood, according to Rabbi Lezer, is enough to convince ourselves that the animal died as a result of shechita. Amar Rav Shimon, hashoche balayla. So he's not able to tell whether the animal is zinka or pirkos, according to Reb Shimon Gamliel. So what substitute simon can he rely upon to conclude that the animal died dafka as a result of the shechita? So if l'mocher hishkim, the following morning, with daybreak, right, he has light, he can see that motzak solim aleim dam, that the walls are full of blood. Now, the word walls here, it's a little confusing, doesn't mean what we think it means. It's not like the walls of his house are full of blood. That's not what happens. But it has to do with the walls of his throat. And you could check the throat and see the way the blood would have kind of flowed out as a result of the shechita. And what will you determine? That shezinka, and that would fulfill Kemidas Rabbi Eliezer, that would guarantee that the animal died as a result of shechita, not earlier as a result of natural causes. Chachamim omrim, ad shetekfarkes o biyad o beregel. Now, the Chachamim are mekil vis-a-vis Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, who had required that there be both one leg in the front, one leg in the back. That was jerking. But rather either one leg in the front or one leg in the back. And a third possibility, according to Chachamim, is o ad shetekashkesh biznova. If it wags its tail, that itself indicates that it's still alive, and then it would have died from the shechita. You could eat the basar. All these distinctions that we made and simonim, echad be'medaka v'echad be'magasa. It matters not what the category of the animal is. It's one of the larger animals or one of the smaller animals. And the Gemara in the Bavis establishes that cattle is considered be'magasa, like for example, a bull or a cow, and small animals, behemedaka, that's sheep and goats. Behemedaka sheposhta yoda v'lo hichzira. If one of those smaller animals, sheep or goats, extends a foreleg and did not bring it back in, psula, then we cannot rely on the shechita she'ena ela hotzas nefesh bilvad. In other words, this is a sign that the animal just died. It's like frozen with one leg extended and without taking it back in. So therefore, if we see any sort of pirkus or zinuk, we have to attribute that to spasms at the point in which its life is expired. So again, we're always looking for a sign of vitality, or alternatively a sign that it died as a result of the shechita. But the Chachamim are telling us that those signs, in the case of sheep or goats, are not reliable if the animal stretched out its leg and didn't retract its leg. But the Mishnah now goes ahead and restricts that chumrah. But medvar, when are we machmir? We say that there's no sign of vitality if the animal extends a leg and doesn't bring it back in. That's only shahoisa b'chezkas misukenes. We had already external evidence to suppose that the animal was in, so to speak, the throes. I don't mean literally the throes of death, but it's on its way to die, which the Gemara is going to explain exactly how. If you have a regular animal that's walking on 4 feet, and we have no reason to suspect that it's an unhealthy animal, then afilu ein ba ella ein ba echad mikol simanim alolu kshera. Then apparently, if an animal has a chezkas bria, then forget about all these simanim. We don't need these signs that we mentioned of for parkes, whether it's yad or regel or both, or it spurts out blood. Forget about all that. The animal is bechezkas bria. So again, just to summarize, the whole Mishnah can be classified as a misukenes, as the Mishnah opens up with the words hashochet es hamisukenes. So we have reason to believe that this animal is on its way to die, which the Gemara is going to explain why. Now the Gemara wants to say misukenes b'mai sharia. Once it's misukenes, then the shechita cannot be meaningful. So Gemara says, "What are you talking about? Mimai teisek adaita dasir. What kind of thought crossed your mind that just because the animal is on its way to die, that therefore you can't shech the animal?" And the Gemara answers because the chsiv zos hachaya asher tochelu, meaning you can only eat the animal, the meat of the animal caught after shechita because it's chaya. Chaya means it's got vitality to it. Chaya echol she'ena chaya lo sochal. V'mesukenes eina chaya. A mesukenes already doesn't have the signs of vitality. And therefore, it's already classified in that category that it's not an animal that's chaya. And if it's not chaya, then the pasuk that says asher tochu, that you're allowed to eat it through shechita, is not applicable. So now that the Gemara is already convinced that there's very ample reason to suspect that the animal, since it's misukenes, it's not chaya, and therefore shechita cannot be matir, now the Gemara has to turn the tables around and try to prove that enochinami, the pasuk indicates that a misukenes is still considered alive, and shechita will be matirit. Mida omer achmona nevela lo sochel. The Torah says that once the animal drops dead and it's got a carcass, that's called nevela. Then you're not allowed to eat it. Michlal, I derive from that misukenes sharia. Why did the Torah have to tell you that an avela is prohibited if even while it's alive, since it's a mesukenes, it's a dying animal, you cannot eat the meat if you shecht it. Then how much more so if it's nevela, it's already completely dead, and all you have is a carcass. The Torah didn't have to tell me that you can't eat a nevela. I learned it and it derived from Kal Vachomer. So Gemara says, what kind of logic is that? Vidilma hainu nevela hainu misukenes. When the Torah calls it a nevela, the Torah is referring to misukenes because I'm going to assume that misukenes, since it's not a chaya and it doesn't show and display any signs of vitality, therefore it's considered dead. And if it's considered dead, then the animal is already a nevela. Mara says that doesn't make any sense. Why? Lo salkadait, don't even entertain such a possibility. Tichsiv, the Torah says, v'chiyomus min behema asher hi lachem li'achla nogeh b'niflasa. The Torah says that after its yamus, which means it actually died, then hanogeh b'niflasa, etc., and all the laws of tumas nevela apply because it's a carcass. The Torah explicitly in the same pasuk uses the two terms, number one, ki yamus, and number two, nevela. Mechayim lo ikra nevela. So don't tell me that already, since it's dying, it's considered nevela. The Torah is referring to the nevela only with ki yamus. And therefore, since the Torah prohibits nevela, it doesn't prohibit a dying animal. Vidilma, says the Gemara again, back and forth. I'm going to go back to my premise that the word nevela refers to a dying animal. And mechayim bi esei li'achar misa bilav. Perhaps what the Torah is saying is that misukenes is prohibited, but it's not called an avela, but it's not a chaya. So therefore, since the Torah says in a positive sense, eat a chaya, a live animal, and this animal doesn't display chiyus, vitality, therefore the essay of zos hachaya asher tochelu kicks in, and we have a lav habamachal essay. And now when the Torah says with a losa said, don't eat nevela, then the Torah is referring to the second stage after misukenes, when it's mamish a nevela, when it actually dies. So therefore, to summarize, at this point in the Shakal V'Tari of the Gemara, we have no proof that misukenes is subject to shchita and the heter of the basar, and we could still argue that misukenes has the same status as an nevela, and therefore the shechita will not be matir. Just that at stage one, when it's misukenes before it actually gepegert, then it's an essay, and then after it dies, then it is a nevela with a lotas. So now the Gemara has to go back into the rink with another possible suggestion: is how do we know where's the source in the Torah that a misukenes lends itself to shchita? Ela midam rachmana treifa lo sochel. The Torah says that dafka a treifa you shouldn't eat. What's a treifa? A treifa is an animal that's missing one of its vital organs, or at least one of its vital organs has a hole in it. It's perfect, like the lungs, implying that anything but a treifa, if the animal is just old age and it's gradually dying, and the Malach HaMavis is on its way to take the animal, that is not a treifa. And since the Torah only prohibits a treifa, then a mesukenes is mutter. Michlal mesukenes sharia. To eat al kedait, if you're going to argue the opposite and tell me that mesukenes asura is hashta mesukenes de lo machasra, it's not missing any part of its vital organs, asira, and then you're going to tell me it's asur, is then therefore treifa miboy. Why does that Torah have to tell me that an animal that's missing some sort of vital organ or parts of a vital organ is going to die, and therefore it's also, forget about that. Even if it's not missing something in its vital organs, it's already a mesukenes, and it's not displaying those signs of vitality, then it's already asura. But the Torah goes ahead and says, don't eat a treifa. From the fact that the Torah doesn't eat a treifa, it means that anything but a treifa you're allowed to eat. And therefore, the animal that's dying is not a treifa, and it's not prohibited. The Torah only prohibited treifa. I'm wondering in the Gemara's logic, if a Mesukenes was prohibited, what would be the language of the Torah? What would be the biblical Hebrew word for Mesukenes? Because the Gemara is saying, why did the Torah have to prohibit treifa? We could learn treifa from a kavachom from Mesukenes. If Mesukenes is also, then certainly a treifa. So I'm just wondering what formula in the etymology of biblical lexicon it would have said Mesukenes. I don't know. Anyway. Now the Gemara is going to present the same logic and the counter argument that we saw before. Dilma Hainu Treifa Hainu Misukenes. Right before we had Hainu Nevela Hainu Misukenes, that was saying Hainu Treifa, meaning what difference it make why the animal is going to die? Either the animal is going to die because it has some sort of internal injury to one of its vital organs, or it's going to die because it's the time for it to die. Right? And every animal has a lifespan, an average lifespan. So we got to the end of its lifespan, and now it's fading away. One of my favorite, I'm a big fan of Dr. Seuss. One of my favorite Dr. Seuss books is called The King's Stilts. Have you ever read it? Oh, it's a mussar schmooze. You should read it. The King's Stilts. Basically, the king, in every morning when he goes out for air and he works up his energy for the many responsibilities of being monarch, he goes on stilts. He loves to jump on stilts. And the people start seeing that the king is jumping on stilts, and they said to the king, no, that's not proper behavior for a king. So he stops going on stilts and he loses his vitality. He's like kind of depressed. And he has these lions, in the Dr. Seuss books, he has these lions that protect the castle and so forth. They start getting depressed, they start no signs of vitality. In any event, for laver olav b'yaseh v'lo im kain nevela de kosav rachman olamali, meaning, why did the Torah, if treifa means misukenes, and the Torah explicitly prohibits a treifa, which is a misukenes, then why did the Torah have to add nevela? Forget about nevela. Already, when it's alive, it's either a treifa and it's asur, and there's no help from shchita, or it's a misukenes and it's asur. So why do you have to tell me about a nevela? Uma mechaim koyel belav v'esei. Now you're telling me that you violated an essay because it's not chaya, and a losa said because it's already prohibited as a treifa, even though the animal is alive and it's on 4 feet. Then why do you have to tell me that you can't eat the carcass of an avela? Liachar misa mi boy, bidilma hainu avela hainu treifa hainu mesukenes. Whoa, maybe we should say that it's all the same. We'll have to explain why the Torah uses different terminology. But we have 3 things that are identical in halachic terms. Number 1, a misukenes. Number 2, a treifa. And number 3, a nevela. They're all the same. So why did the Torah repeat all 3? Lav or olav b'shnei lav v'yesei. So there's one lav for treifa lo tochelu, another lav for nevela lo tochelu, and there's an essay that says chaya tochelu. So the Gemara says, you know what? You've already smashed me on the second round. I'm going to have to come up with a third alternative. Ela mehocha, how do I know that you're allowed to eat a misukenes? The Torah says, "V'chelev nevela v'chelev treifa ye'asel chol malacha v'yachol osel chluhu." Now we're talking about chelev. The Torah prohibits us from eating chelev. Now the animal dies. Once the animal dies, it should be prohibited as an avela, but the chelev part is already prohibited as chelev. And we normally have a principle of ein iser chal iser. Once the chalev was also, you can't add another iser nevela on top of it. So therefore, I need the Torah to tell me that there's another iser on the chalev, on top of chalev. You're going to violate another lav and get malchus for a second lav because it died and it's nevela. And that's why the Torah had to spell it out, chalev nevela for chalev treifa. And what is the Torah teaching me about chalev nevela and chalev treifa? That it is asur b'achila under both categories of chalev and of nevela and treifa. But the Torah wants to say that it's mutter b'ano. It's not like basa b'cholov when meat gets milk in with. They'll have a whole chapter about that. That's asur b'ano. You can't even feed it to a dog. But here the Torah says you're allowed all benefit. Amra Torah Yavo Isa Nevel Yachal Isa Chel. The Torah had to be mechadish that the principle of ein Isur Chal Isa does not apply here. It's suspended, and the second Isur Bichal on top of the first Isur. And again, Yavo Isa Treifa V'Yachal Isa Chelev. That once the animal becomes a treifa, the Isa Treifa is chal on top, in addition to the Isur Chelev. Now, we haven't yet gotten to the punchline yet because we still don't know how this is going to prove that Mesukenes is mutter, shariat. So that we'll have to see on Amud Beis.